Hi, everybody. Welcome back in the closet, a gay as fuck podcast. Today we have a really special guest who's joining us, a former member of The Ramp. It is a cult in Hamilton, Alabama, run by head pastor Karen Wheaton. I do want to give everybody a trigger warning on today's episode, as it is going to feature harsh themes, dark moments, as well as some brief discussion about SA and trauma. So, if any of these things are triggering to you, then please know that this podcast episode may not be the one for you to watch. Um, I'm not going to do a long intro today, as the topic matter is fairly serious. We are still going to have some fun moments towards the end of the podcast, but I did want to give the guest today the respect that she deserves. So, without further ado, let's welcome Denise.
Closet, back in the closet.
Hi, Denise. How are you?
Hey, I am doing good. Got off work and got ready to do all this.
Oh my gosh, what do you do for work?
I work in healthcare and behavioral health.
Okay, that sounds
Yes,
interesting and hard.
it can be hard. I've done that kind of work for about 20 years on and off. I'm used to working with children diagnosed with autism, but now I work with the parents who have received that diagnosis from their children, the
Hmm.
children's doctors, and I'm kind of supporting the parents because that can be hard news for a lot of parents.
Right. Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds like you literally love to help people. So,
Always.
I mean, that explains a lot because you do a lot of
Yeah.
outspoken work helping people that are stuck in this cycle of being in a cult or a part of a organization or group that can be very similar to a cult. Um,
Yeah.
Can you share with me just a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the church?
Well, I'm 45 years old. Some call me Rosie O'Donnell, kind of look like her
Okay, I see it.
inside. But yeah, I've been in the church since the womb, since my mama had me in her womb.
Holy cow.
And yes. So yeah, I started off in the Baptist church up until like third grade. I went with my grandparents. And then my mom stopped going when I was around 11 years old. And then that's when I started going to some of the bigger churches, the mega churches, and involved with all of that and started to see some of the behind the scenes stuff in the mega churches.
Yes, oh my Lord. What mega churches were you, growing up in when you were younger?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Southern Illinois. It's on the border of Kentucky and Illinois, right there at the bottom,
Hmm.
nowhere near Chicago. And so I'm going to name the churches because I have been going through this healing process. I name the people and the places, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
in Benton, Illinois, it's called New Life Church of God.
Hmm.
The pastor was Rod Joplin at the time.
Okay.
And then the other mega church was in Marion, Illinois, and the pastors at the time were Pastor Tony and Starla Holly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you come to know Karen Wheaton?
Oh, good Lord. Well, I think, and let me do some background a little bit on that. I think a lot of people turn to people like Karen because they're looking for family.
Right.
They're looking for a mama figure to love on them where they are. And
Absolutely.
so I didn't have an emotional relationship with my mom very good. I mean, she was there and she took care of my needs, the food, the house, all that.
Right.
But I was looking for a mama. And so, of course, there's always TBN Network, Trinity Broadcasting Network, the Christian channel.
Yep, I am
And so,
familiar.
yes. And
Have
so
you
I
ever
thought,
seen, this is so off topic, but have you ever
uh,
seen the clips of there was one pastor from that network that would always be on every night, and they used to clip his sermons on YouTube and put fart noises behind him because he would make these crazy faces. Have you ever
probably Perry Stone, probably Perry Stone.
I think that's who
Or
it
Paula White, she's also one of those they put the fart noises on too,
is.
which is Trump's spiritual advisor.
Yes, oh my gosh,
Yes,
the video of her
don't
at
even.
yeah,
Yes, that was the group of people that I hung around with. The type of people
right.
I was. If you want to call me that, I'm a former Christian nationalist.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so I saw Karen on one of the praise-a-thons they would always do for a week. They would
Yeah,
have all the singers and the ministers on there, and they're like, hey, give me $1,000 and God will get you this and God will get you that. Well, I saw Karen on there, and of course, she has that mama personality where she draws you in with her vocals. And I was a singer as well. I
mhm,
led worship and different things like that. And so she drew me in from day one. I was probably 13 or 14.
right,
You know what
and
I
not to
mean?
mention a lot it's very, very common for these kind of, like, figureheads of these
Mhm.
mega churches and cults to have a very comforting presence at first when you're
At
first,
first.
yes, exactly, at first to draw people in, just like you said, the voice was
Mhm.
what attracted, you
Yes.
to feel like, "This could be a mom figure for me," and
Hmm.
that's what sucks a lot of people into these kinda
It
situations.
does. And then we put them on a pedestal through
Right.
the years. And then that's when we get in trouble.
Mhm.
You
Absolutely.
know, so my love for Karen grew through the years. I mean, I went and saw her in concert, and she would have chosen, this is later on. So I saw her in concert a few times, and she spoke a few Jesus words over my life. And it was just like, that's my mom. I
Right.
know that she's my spiritual mom. Like, this is a lot of lingo that we used in the mega church.
Mhm.
So someone who can guide you and direct you spiritually, per se.
Right.
So yeah, Karen was that to me 100%.
Yeah. I totally understand that, and, my church wasn't I wouldn't say what do you know what number classifies a mega church? Like, what population would classify it?
Lord, I've never even thought of that.
Because me either, because I think about that sometimes in the church that I grew up with, we had several thousand members, maybe about 2 or
Hmm.
3,000 members, but, you see these other churches like Church of the Highlands with thousands of campuses, so they have probably
Yeah,
yeah, upwards of probably
that's
50,000,
huge. Yeah.
100,000 members, and yeah, so it's crazy to me how big these things can get and how out of control they can
Yeah.
become.
I think the definition has expanded throughout the years.
Yeah.
Like my experience in the 90s and early 2000s, they just exploded since then,
Right,
you
exactly.
know.
So, speaking about Karen Wheaton, so you had seen her in concert a couple of times, and then so how did you become and then she had spoken over you, a couple words
Of
here and
course.
there. And so how did that relationship with her grow over time?
Well, it happened through actually a very tragic event that happened at my church to me.
Oh my goodness.
And so I was in, my home church and all that, and the worship leader, I don't know what's allowed to say on here, raped me. And so I went to my pastor's wife, and she said, "Oh, men have needs."
Oh my
So
goodness.
that was her answer. That was it. And that was my first time doing anything.
That's
So
so
yeah.
awful.
And so I was already a member of Karen's ministry by donating monthly. I was already a partner with her ministry, and I had formed a good relationship with her assistant, who at
Okay.
the time, her name was Margaret Myrick, was her name.
Mhm.
She's an older lady, Myrick. She's from Winfield, Alabama.
Okay.
And so I had formed a really close relationship to her over the phone and via email as well. And I told her, and she said, "You just need to get down here. You just need to get down here and let the Lord heal you, and anything that's in your life that's not of God." And she didn't necessarily comfort me because of the incident. She told me that I needed healing.
Right. Just
And I'm
very
like,
generic, not
okay,
super specific.
yes.
Yeah.
So I said, "Can you help me find an apartment? Can you help me find these places?" And she's like, "Well, we have some housing next to the ramp, things
Mhm.
like that." So she kind of got me in the thought process to get down there because I wanted to go down there anyway. I
Right.
mean, that was my heart. I wanted to move to North Alabama to work at the ramp and be near Karen because she was my mama figure,
Right.
So that was in, Lord, that was in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in 2005.
So when you moved down there, you said they had housing. Was it like a compound style housing, like off near the
Well,
church?
Well, the housing aspect did not work out.
Okay.
She had called the housing, it was like the projects. But it
Okay.
wasn't Karen's, it wasn't
It
Karen's
wasn't
property.
affiliated. Right.
No. It was just something in town to get me through,
Right.
but I didn't end up taking those. I went over to her town in Winfield, which is like 20 minutes from Hamilton, where the ramp is. And so
Okay.
I lived in Winfield, but I also worked at the ramp, which
Okay.
is just 20 minutes away.
So you
So
did
I
actually
finally,
work there too at the ramp?
yeah, I volunteered.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I did. And
Wow.
so when I arrived in town in 2007, February 2007. And I have, let's see, I have journals from 20 years ago from
Hmm.
when I arrived there. They are
Oh my
filled.
gosh.
They are filled with my experiences of the ramp and being in megachurches. I have about 7 of these filled.
Oh my
So
good.
it's going to be in my book. I'm going to be writing a memoir about my experiences.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That is so exciting. Do
Yeah,
you
it's going to be
have any
awesome.
like specific, passage or anything that you want to read from it? You don't have to read it now,
Um,
but if you want to
yeah,
read it,
yeah.
at
Just
the
this
end.
first thing. And I always write down the time and the date to everything. My grandma taught me to do that.
Absolutely.
So, at 8:51 p.m. on February 8th, 2007. And of course, I had the church lingo and the church talk. So all of this is
Right.
written in that cult language.
Oh wow.
So I put, well, Lord, I have arrived in Winfield, Alabama. Everything has just flowed since I got here. Tina just called and said I can hang with her and everybody else tomorrow night. She is from the ramp. I should be able to move into my apartment tomorrow night. Um, Miss Margaret, they are friends. Lord help me, just a whole bunch of stuff. I know that I'm supposed to be here. I feel called to be here. I bowed on my knees to worship you when I arrived in town and thanking you that I can finally work with Miss Karen.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I
I
cannot
arrived there.
wait to read that book.
Oh yeah. I've got to get funding and I've got to learn how to get things published. I've been wanting to do this since I left. So this
Right.
has been 15 years. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I wish you the best of luck with that because,
Yeah.
and if I can point you in any direction, I definitely will as far as like
That
publishing
I would
is
be
concerned,
appreciative. Yeah.
because those publishers are so difficult.
Yeah. Or
Um,
even self-publish, whichever.
oh, self-published. I mean, a great resource would be through Amazon. Amazon
Okay.
has a program, and I can send it to you later, but
Okay.
they have a program where you can self-publish and sell the book through Amazon.
Good deal. Good deal.
Okay, so Uh, when you became a member of the ramp, what was your understanding of their core principles, values that you were personally aligned with or felt you were aligned with at
Mhm.
that time?
Well, you don't necessarily become a member. You're just kind of there.
Right.
I wasn't part of Chosen. I was friends with the original cast members of Chosen, the dance team, the
Right.
cast members. And so I literally was there to serve. Karen
Mhm.
had instilled in us that we are servants of God. And when we serve the head of the house, which is Karen, then we are serving God. So
Right.
that's cult mentality. That's
Yes,
cult mentality right
absolutely.
there. And so, me being in that cult mentality for decades now, of course, I was like, yes, yes, yes,
Absolutely,
anything you need,
absolutely.
anything you want. And so,
Right.
anywhere she needed me was where I went. If it was to
Mhm.
lay hands on people and pray for them that night at the ramp conference, I was there. If it was to sell t-shirts, if it was to help with the cafe, because they had a cafe at the time, I was there. I was cleaning, setting up chairs, all of that. And so our values aligned based on the fact that it was cult mentality. It was
Right.
just,
And you know what stuck out to me about that too was just all these things that you were required to do or at least felt required to do. How many, how much time do you think you were spending a week, you know, doing performing these, tasks?
oh Lord, they would have conferences all the time. I know they had weekend service at the time, and I worked a full-time job as well.
Right.
A lot of times I would call in from work just to go. Just,
Yeah.
hey, sorry, I gotta be at the ramp. I gotta be at the ramp. It's the Lord's will. It's the Lord's will. I know that
Right.
I'm supposed to be here. It's the Lord's will, but yet I wasn't getting paid for it,
Exactly.
like many people weren't.
Yeah.
And so I was there. I was there all the time. So they had weekend services, if I remember, is where they would call the youth in off the streets. So it
Hmm.
was the youth mainly. And then they would have spring ramp, summer ramp, uh, kids ramp, and winter ramp. So I was
Okay.
there for all of those, interacting and helping out. Yeah.
That is crazy. I
It
can't
was all
imagine
the
how
time.
much time you were spending there. That's so
A
crazy.
lot. It was my life. It was my
Yeah,
life even before I moved there. I was
right.
like that in the churches too.
And you know what? I really think that, um, I mean, even from my own experiences, even when you are in, there is a fine line between a church and a cult. It really is so fine to me. And I mean, it's even when I grew up in the church, I think some of the time our church would cross over into that, more cult-based mentality from being a church. I can't say that it was as, tragic or, what you went through with the ramp, but even kind of the ideology of having, like, the head and serving the head,
Uh-huh.
I remember our pastor gave a sermon one, Sunday about the umbrella is what they called it. Yeah,
Yes.
and
You're
yes,
underneath. Yep.
right, and you have the pastor, your father, your mother,
Uh-huh.
and the kids, yeah. So
All
even
of that.
that kind of mentality was instilled in me as a child as well.
Yeah. But we were taught to submit to the head, and Karen was the head, and Damon Thompson is another one. So Damon Thompson was another head leader there.
Okay.
And he is now here where I live, and I had no idea. He
Oh, wow.
started a church here.
Okay.
Yeah. So he worked with Karen like this. They were
Hand in hand.
one,
Right.
hand in hand. Yeah. So I was there long before the university was there and all of that. So I'm like first generation ramp person, basically.
Oh, wow. They have a university now?
At a huge university. That's where a lot of what I'm hearing, some of the victims that are coming forward from the university.
Wow, that is
Yeah,
crazy.
RSM, it's called.
Okay, that's really similar to, I have had so many people reaching out to me since I posted that, Church of the Highlands video, and,
Hmm.
they also have a college called
Of course
Highlands
they
College,
do.
and
Of course they do.
crazy to me that these places, these, mega churches, these cults are not being taxed. I think that's one thing
Mm.
that's wild to me,
And they're
especially
not credited either.
right, they're not
They're
accredited,
not credited.
and so they're not getting, public funding,
Mhm.
obviously, they're
Of
gonna be
course not.
private institutions.
It's private pay from the parents.
Exactly, and so it is a for-profit business at the end of the day, so it's
Mhm.
it's wild to me that they can evade taxes somehow.
Oh, absolutely. And Karen owns half the town now. I mean, she's bought, I think, from what I've heard, 40 buildings, and most
Oh,
of them are all empty. And this town, I'm telling you, this town probably has 8,000 people or less in it,
right. Well,
or
that's
less.
that's another type of predatory behavior that
Mhm.
cult leaders use. The Church of Scientology, in Clearwater, Florida, is where they
Mm.
are based out of, and
Right.
Scientology owns 98% of that town now, even though all the buildings are empty. They just
Yeah.
taken up all the real estate so nobody else
Well,
can move.
the interesting thing is her daughter is now a realtor,
Mm,
and also her son-in-law, I believe, is in it as well.
wow.
And he's the judge's son. Now, don't quote me, but I may be getting it mixed up. But there's realtors in that family that
That
have gone ahead and gone through that process of doing that, and the
wow.
buildings are empty.
That's so
I
crazy.
mean, Brooke, our buddy, did a video on it, and she showed the parking lot, which was there when I was there back in
Mhm.
2007. It's still empty from
Right.
back then. It's ridiculous. And
See?
there's so many youth that have needs there in that town that she cannot meet, that she's not meeting, even though she says that this is her calling was the youth.
Right. That's another thing that I wanted to ask you about as well, because to me, it seems so indoctrinative and predatory to want to target the youth specifically.
Uh-huh.
These people that, are just figuring out their lives and figuring out who they are.
Well, what her whole thing is, her whole message in the beginning when she first started the ramp in '98, I believe, She said God gave her a vision and said, God told her, what you invest in the lives of other young people, God will invest in the lives of your children.
Mm,
So she ran with that.
right.
So that's what she started. And I have a thing about the youth. Well, what's your next question? We'll go there.
Oh,
What's
okay.
your next question?
Um, so I guess, well, I kind of already asked this, not in a different way, I guess, but what I guess were your biggest responsibilities as far as like taking direction specific from Karen or the ramp members?
Um, Honestly, just to serve. When you go to the ramp and you're part of the ramp, you are called to serve.
Hmm.
That's the whole mentality. You serve wherever you're needed.
Right. So they just
And
kind
you
of
listen to
part of
Karen, you listen to Damon, you listen to those in the proper authority.
it.
So if
Hmm.
they ask you to sit in the back, you sit in the back. If they ask you to move youth to the back, you move them to the back and you don't question.
Well, that was my next question is if you were not to comply with something that was asked of you, what was the retaliation, if not for you, for others?
Well, I never went against her, but I did question her one time.
Mhm.
So this is an experience I had. Dutch Sheets is a famous minister.
Mhm.
Famous. He's written several hundreds of books, tons of books. And they were friends with Karen. So Dutch was coming in, and this youth group he brought with them. And of course, at the time, Karen filmed the ramp for TBN and Daystar, all of these Christian networks. And so
Mhm.
cameras were there and ready to film the show, the ramp. And Karen looked at me and she said, "Can you help me move these youth to the back?" So the youth off the streets, the youth who had paid money for the conference and traveled hundreds of miles. And I looked at her and I said, "Why? They're already up front. They're ready to go." And she said, "Well, Dutch Sheets is here and he brought a youth group." And I said, "Why does that matter?" And she said, "Because they know how to praise God on camera, point blank."
Oh my word.
And that's when one little light bulb went off in my head.
Right.
I'm like, Are you kidding me?
Of course, we have children here ready to worship, and we're gonna ask
Ready.
them to move to the back for why?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because his youth know how to worship God on camera
Yeah,
because they were already indoctrinated in this mentality, in this cult mentality. They know how to put on a show for Jesus. You know what I mean? They know how to speak in tongues and flop on the floor. They know how to do all that.
that is crazy. So was that a common practice, like falling into aisles, that kind of situation? Like, from
Yes.
yes? Oh my
Yes.
goodness. That's
It was
crazy.
laying on of the hands, like laying on of the hands and casting out demons and everything, calling out all kinds of demons, homosexuality, the spirit of lust, the spirit of greed, the spirit of witchcraft, all of that.
Oh my goodness. I cannot
It was
imagine.
huge.
Yeah, my husband, he grew up, Pentecostal, and
Hmm.
and when I found that out, I always ask him, "How many snakes?" That's it.
Not all of them are like that. They're kind of sneaky, like
Right,
snakes.
well, that's what his was not. That's what he told me too. He was like, "We never had
Hmm.
any snakes, but we sure did have falling into aisles. We had
Hmm.
great after baptisms, people would go
Oh
wild
yeah, we
and."
had revivals for days on end. We would be there for services for hours on end, not eating, not doing anything, submitting.
You used the word revivals. So what does this word mean to you? Because I have not heard this,
You mean now? You've
or
never heard the word revival?
no, not as far as a conference or a service is
You
concerned.
need to ask your husband. He would know.
He probably does know.
A revival basically is a great outpouring of the Spirit of God.
Okay. Can you like
So,
explain what that might look like?
so what this looks like is we always had a prayer at the ramp. God end abortion and bring revival to America. That was our prayer. Okay. We prayed this. And here's
Uh-huh.
what we would do. There was a gentleman named Lou Engle who was in charge of The Call. It's another huge mega ministry all about abortion and ending abortion in America.
Oh my goodness.
Now, he was the leader. He was another leader. He was out of Colorado Springs. And we would wear red tape on our mouth with the words life written on Sharpie marker with it. I know it's cult like. I know. Are you ready? You ready for this?
I'm prepared.
So we would all get on our knees and we would rock back and forth. We would rock back and forth. And there'll be other people that can confirm this. So, and you can watch some of Blue Eagle's stuff too, because it's all in there. So we would rock back and forth and pray, and we would rock and point to the heavens and say, God, it was just about saving the unborn. And we wore red tape on our mouth to represent the silent screams of the unborn.
Oh my goodness. That is
Yeah.
crazy.
So God and abortion in America and sin revival. That
Wow.
was the whole thing.
Yeah. Thank you for enlightening me. I have
Yeah.
never heard of this. This is insane to me.
So it's
Um,
basically bringing God all over America. It was all about America and the flags and all different kinds of shit that they would do like that too.
right.
Yeah.
Lots of that's I feel like that's a pretty consistent theme within all of the mega churches that I've attended at
Hmm.
least. This very
Yeah.
pro-Americana, pro-Trump, very
Very cult, very Christian
mhm,
nationalist.
right.
Beyonce. Yeah.
And so at what point, I know you talked about having that little red flag moment of when she had, responded to you in that way of pushing the youth group to the back.
Yeah.
Is that the first, kind of light bulb moment or realization that you had that you
That
might
was the first light bulb moment. Now, mind you, I had been in the church for how many decades before that? And I never had a little light bulb go off.
right.
But we had always been taught to seek the real Jesus, whatever that meant,
Mhm.
and it backfired on Karen.
You're right.
So I was always praying to God, I just want to know the real Jesus. I just want to seek the real Jesus. Show me who the real Jesus is. Well, I started getting in my Bible and only reading Jesus's words.
Right.
And that was showing me Jesus's character.
Mhm.
And so I started lining up Jesus' character with the ramp. And I'm like, this is not,
It's not
something is
going
fucking
together.
off.
Right.
Yeah, something is off. So that was just one thing. And I felt such a grieving in my heart because that was my family for decades.
Right.
That was my family.
Yeah,
And
how
so there was,
that for you? I mean, I know it can be so difficult, and I mean, from I have from all my friends that have been in, the church or cults or from even just cult documentaries I've seen, it can be really, it is heartbreaking after have that kind of that moment of realization.
mhm,
And then it can be a grieving
yeah,
process for a lot of people.
it was. And I had one more defining moment. That was it for me.
Mhm.
And so if you like, I can share that too.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
there is a gentleman there by the name of Rick Pino. He was a worship leader. And this is a lot of people are familiar with this story as well. This was aired on television for a series, and Rick came and he always had a habit of turning secular songs into Christian songs.
Okay, I'm
Okay.
I'm a little familiar with that.
Okay, you know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
So the place was packed shoulder to shoulder, and God or my intuition or something told me to go all the way to the back and stand against the wall and just watch.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, God or universe, whoever. So I go back there and watch. And Rick Pino starts in, and you start hearing this familiar music. And it's you spin me right round, baby, right
Right, yeah.
round like a record, right?
Yes.
So Rick decides to say, everybody grab something, grab a t-shirt, grab a sock, grab your socks and spin them around your head. And it was like in worship to Christ, showing that you are sacrificing something, something like that.
Mhm.
And so everybody is spinning their stinky ass socks, and the place is packed to pack, or their t-shirts or whatever they can get a hold of. Of course, you can't go naked there or they'll say something.
Right.
So they're all spinning their socks, and I'm sitting in the back and I'm watching. And all of a sudden, these tears just start filling my eyes. And
Mm,
the God or the universe or whoever said, only the pure in heart shall see the truth.
mhm. Wow.
And I just started crying more. And I'm like, wow, I'm done here.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the final, that was my escape out. Nobody had talked me out of it. Nobody, nothing. That was my own revelation
Right.
that it was time, you know?
I'm so grateful that you had that revelation and that, and it wasn't something that had to stem from a dangerous or toxic situation with another member of the church.
Yeah. I mean, there was plenty of abuse that happened within there.
Hmm.
Mental abuse, physical abuse, spiritual abuse, all
Right.
kinds of manipulation and harm and damage that they brought upon people. I
Yeah.
was one of them with Damon Thompson. And it's just, it's a shame. It's a
Yeah.
shame.
It is a shame. It really is.
But I've been out of organized religion for 15 years and I've never been kinder. I'm happier. I'm more loving. I'm just, I'm not that anymore.
Right. Oh, that's such a breath of fresh air to hear you
I
say
was so
because,
fucking mean. Do you know how mean I was in the church as a Christian?
right. And, I can't blame you either because I went through that myself when I was deconstructing my own faith. And
Mhm.
I was also so mean, but it's because I was bred to feel bad all the
All the
time.
time.
All the time. Yeah, of
And then
course.
I had improper coping skills while I was in the church.
Oh,
I'm
I
like,
know I did because anytime I was struggling with anything, they just say, "Turn to Jesus." There was
yes,
no
turn to Jesus.
therapy, there was no, "Let's go
There
see."
was no emotions. There was nothing.
Right.
So I became an alcoholic in the church. I became a pill popper in the church. I was coming to church service drunk. And this started back in Illinois at my mega
Mhm.
churches and
Wow.
went to Karen's ministry because they taught me to loathe myself,
Absolutely.
despise myself. On one hand, Jesus loves you. On the other hand, you're going to hell. Which is it, motherfucker? Which
Right.
is it? You know, just
Yeah, for real.
so I internalized all of that. I became a self harmer. I would engrave scriptures on my legs
Oh my god.
to die to the flesh. It
Wow.
was very tragic. Looking back at that girl and who I am now, I just want to love on that baby,
Yeah. Hey,
you know?
I can say this, I mean, I'm proud of you, and I'm proud that you are, reconciled from that, and that little you would also be proud of you now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've been able to confront Damon Thompson at his church here where I live now.
Mhm.
So I've confronted him
I
as
love
well.
that. So, you were speaking before about, the manipulation and abuses of the ramp. Um, could you, maybe share, like, a couple stories of other people that were, other victims? You do not have to name them, obviously, if, we wanna keep their, identities concealed,
Mhm.
but, just other situations going more into that.
Well, I remember when Damon Thompson was working there. And I remembered he called specifically for those that knew they were struggling with homosexuality.
Mm,
So these are youth, okay? These are youth. I was a little bit older. I was probably like 27, 28, something like that. So
right.
these are youth. And so they came there under their care, basically, you know. And so anybody who's struggling with homosexuality, come up front now. You don't have to be ashamed. You don't have to be ashamed, but you're going to be delivered from that right now. This is not God's will. And so these youth started coming up front, and you could just watch them one by one by one. And I remember Damon and Karen started laying hands on the top of their head and just rebuking and casting out the spirit of homosexuality out of these youth. And members of Chosen would also go down and pray, So it made the youth feel privileged in a way to have them lay hands on me,
Mm,
because they're famous and this must be God, or else they wouldn't have called that out, But being gay is a nationwide thing. Anybody can say, oh, you're struggling with the spirit of homosexuality. You know what I mean? They
yeah.
don't know that you are unless they call something out, But these youth felt vulnerable enough to go up there. It was just really sad. It was really sad to watch. And you would see like the youth just crying and crying and crying and lifting their hands and saying, I'm so sorry, God, I'm so sorry, and asking the youth to repent for their sins. And then another one would be, you guys need to repent for the spirit of lust. You guys need to repent for watching pornography. You guys need to repent for wearing low cut shirts because you're putting the guys in, what was it where like if you cause your brother to sin, if the women wear
Yes.
low cut shirts, things like that.
Right.
So it's just any little thing that would be typical for teenage behavior, they would call out. They called out masturbation. They called out everything. If you're
Right.
struggling with masturbation, come forward. It was a whole fucking thing. They're teenagers.
Right. Which is like, I don't know if you're struggling with masturbation or if you're just starting to go through puberty now.
Right. So
Right.
anything that had to do with mental health, emotions, typical behavior from teenagers, they would push to the side and call it a demon.
Right. Absolutely.
So that's
I,
why so many people leave the megachurch fucking traumatized.
I can't agree with you more on this because so at my, church I grew up in, I came out of the closet when I was 14. I was very
Wow.
busy, and I was just, when I came out, I literally told my parents, I said, I'm a fag. That's how I
I
said
love it. Yeah.
it. And it did not go well. And I was in
Yeah.
conversion therapy for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people have a misconception of what that can look like. Just
It's different. Yeah, it's different.
different, yeah, it's different everywhere. And specifically for my church, it was much, there wasn't anything super physical about it as far as
Mm-hmm.
goes, but it was all very mental and emotionally
Yeah.
taxing. And just what
Yeah.
you said, trying to convince that, these authority figures that we put on pedestals, allowing them to, you know, make us think that we can,
Something's wrong.
yeah, exactly, that there's a
Then it
problem
must be wrong. If Karen says it's wrong, then it's wrong.
and it must be wrong.
It must be
Exactly.
wrong. Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
went through my own version of conversion therapy when I was in Illinois
Oh,
with
wow.
4 men at the church. Yeah.
And I can't imagine going through something like that with, you know, 4 cis het men,
White.
white, right.
Let's throw that in there too.
Yeah, that I couldn't, I mean, I personally did as well, but I also was a white man, so, that
Hmm.
was, you know, at least we had something that was slight in common, but,
Yeah.
uh, a non-binary person or a woman, I couldn't imagine that.
It was terrifying. I had entrusted one of the female members of the church. It was at All Nations Church in Benton, Illinois. I'd entrusted her and told her, you know what? I've known that I've been gay since I was 12. And I
Right.
told her because, it's God's will to get rid of that or whatever. Well, she ended up telling the pastor who told the deacons of the church. And so I was up front worshiping one night, house packed, and 4 men drugged me off and pulled me upstairs to a separate room, just me and them. And I was up there for 6 hours.
Oh my lord.
And they made me sign a contract beforehand that if I was injured in this deliverance service, I would not sue them.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That is
So
so
at the time, I
traumatic.
didn't have any fucking common sense. I just went with it because I thought it was God's will. That's what
Right.
cult and indoctrination does.
Of course, and at the same time, you were so young.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that is so awful. Um,
Yeah.
so, uh, I have 2 more questions kinda just to wrap us up. Um, what was the catalyst for you to decide to leave the ramp?
It was that last thing that I mentioned earlier about Rick Pino and that bullshit, and me standing back just watching and hearing that small voice, whatever that was, it's time. The
Right,
pure in heart shall see the truth, and this is not the truth.
right.
You know what
And
I mean?
oh, absolutely. And, what advice or message, would
Mhm.
you give to those who fear leaving the ramp, leaving any cult or megachurch, or even worse, don't realize what they're a part of?
Mm. That's a great question. I think a lot of times when people are in it, they don't realize that they're in it until they get out.
Right.
You know what I mean? Um, I don't know in regards to them being in it, because sometimes they don't realize it. They're so indoctrinated that you don't realize that you're in it.
Right.
So a word for those that have come out, if that's okay,
Yeah.
a word for those that have been able to escape the cult. And you're just now realizing that that was your family and that was your heart and that was your soul. And you still have Christian parents and you're still young and you don't know where to turn after you've left the ramp or a cult like mentality like that. You are okay with who you are just as you are,
Mhm.
period. End of
Absolutely.
story. God is love, period. Nothing added, nothing taken away. And God can look like whatever you want God to look like, but God overall is love. Where you see love is where you see God. Bottom
I
line. If you
love
don't see love, you don't see God.
absolutely. Well, okay, Denise. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. You are so powerful standing in your own right, and I'm just so happy and proud that you are so outspoken and courageous enough to,
Yes.
talk about this.
I
Um,
absolutely know who I am now.
I love that. And
Yeah.
I always like to do this with all my guests. I know this has been a more heavy podcast episode, but I wanted to do something a little bit fun and
Uh-huh.
a little bit of a, lighter moment.
Check,
So
I work in behavioral health. I can handle anything.
a perf. um so this is like a little segment that we do on the podcast. It's called Spit or Swallow. So you're just going to
Perfect.
tell me if you would spit it or if you would swallow it.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. So the first one is mega churches.
Spit that motherfucking shit out. Just
Absolutely.
spit it out. Don't even taste it.
No.
Don't even near it to even like breathe in the stench of it.
Right.
It's not even there to begin with.
Exactly. Okay. So the last one I have for you
Okay.
is drag queens, spit or swallow.
I'd swallow them all day.
Oh, yep, me too, me too.
Yeah.
Are you caught up
All day.
on the new season of RuPaul?
Always. I've not seen the new season yet, but I have
Oh,
lots
okay.
of drag queen friends that I miss tremendously back
Yeah.
home. Yeah. I'd
Um,
swallow them all day.
Sam Starr, one of the contestants on this recent season of RuPaul's Drag Race, we grew up doing musical theater together, and he is from Leeds, Alabama.
Oh, Lord. That's a small little town.
It is a small little town.
Yes. I also went
Okay.
to school for musical theater. Thank you. Oh,
Musical
did we
theater
talk about
too.
this?
I think we talked about that off the
I went
pod.
to major in music and minor in theater initially.
Okay.
And then, of course, ministry happened. And I'm like, yay, I'm like Karen Wheaton. Thank you.
Right. Oh my goodness. What's your favorite musical?
It is Wicked now.
Uh,
It's
oh,
it's
it
Wicked now. I
was
mean, I
so
had
good.
favorite ones through the years. I also like Funny Girl, of course, Barbara Streisand.
How
Hello.
can you not like Barbara
But
Streisand?
Barbara Streisand, number one, and then Wicked
Yeah,
has to be. Because
I
there's such a deep spiritual meaning behind Wicked. That's why I love it.
oh my gosh, yes there is.
Absolutely.
It's crazy to me the outpouring of love that that movie got at this time in our country's history,
So
and
needed.
it was so needed.
So needed.
Okay, so the last thing I wanna do really quick is so I found because I was,
I'm like
researching
hanging out everywhere.
you
Like
said
hanging
what?
out. I'm like hanging out everywhere. I gotta fix this. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. It's cool.
Well, let me see if I can okay, I think this is how to screen share. Yes, okay. So, when I was doing my research to interview you,
What have you done?
I
What have
obviously
you done?
wanted to look at, some of Karen Wheaton's preaching things and, dug deep a little bit to find some info on her and stuff, and
Okay.
I came across she has her own YouTube channel that I found.
Yes.
And I was like, "Okay, why does she actually have more subscribers than me? This is not right." So
I guess she's been around since the 70s and 80s. That's why.
and then when I was listening to one of her videos this morning, her cadence, it reminded me of another video clip that I had seen, And so I like put them like side by side, and I just have to show you because I feel like you're gonna think this is so funny.
Yes. Oh my God, go for it.
And he's saying to you, all of you that are weary and tired, those of you that's carrying overwhelming burdens, don't take risks on treacherous roads and don't swim in the sea. Incredible people have been spotted in the water here
No.
in Rock and Salt Hill, both today and yesterday.
What the hell? Oh my God, you should do so many more of those.
Oh, is that not the
That's
funniest
fucking
thing?
hilarious.
I
That's
don't
fucking
know.
hilarious.
I don't know what it was, but when I was watching that video this morning, immediately when she said that, that's immediately
Oh my God.
was that meme
Yes.
of getting hit with the stop sign.
Oh, that's perfect because we want Karen to stop.
Right?
We want Karen to stop. Tell her.
Alert!
Yeah.
Can you
Hey.
see yourself now? Hey, that was my doing.
Okay, perfect.
I forgot to stop sharing the screen. Um, but yeah, you've just made a lifelong friend in me, and I just adore you so much. And literally, welcome to the shameless gay community, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
it's nice.
yeah,
It is nice.
and is there anything else that you want to say before we sign off?
I'm very grateful for you. And how old are you again?
I'm 26.
I would like to say that I am so proud of your fucking generation
Thank you.
because my generation, when I was 26, I was not this astute. I was not this kind. Um, you're very knowledgeable and you're very educated. And I'm very grateful for this generation and people like you. And there's hundreds of thousands across this nation just like you. And please don't stop. Don't stop ever.
Thank you so much. You really have no idea how much that means to me and to everybody else out here working together to
Yeah.
end these kind of mental games in places
Yeah.
all across everywhere.
We
So,
need you. We
yeah.
need you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that so much.
This is what I know I'm called to do. Like I've spoken and I've ministered for years and years,
Mhm.
but now that's come full circle and it's time for me to go out
Right.
and speak about life,
Yeah.
about things that are kind and people like us and all of that, about
Right.
people coming out of this shit.
Yeah.
That's what I know I'm
Oh,
called to do.
wait, really quick. Can you, because I forgot to do this in the video. Can you plug yourself really quick and tell people where they can find you?
Oh Lord, what's my TikTok handle?
I
I
don't
am
know.
not Rosie O.
Hold
It's
on.
I am not Rosie O.
I am not Rosie
Look
O.
at it real quick.
Yeah, let me check. I think you're right. Yep, it is. It's I am not Rosie O. That's literally yeah.
Okay, perfect.
And also I'm so excited for your book. Like literally, I'm so excited.
I've been trying to get it started for 15 years. I just need somehow to put all the journals together because I've got 20 years worth of those bitches. I've got to get them together
Right.
from like 2003 on.
Yeah, I cannot wait. And I will be the first one in the line to get the book, pre-sale. I will be at the book signing,
I'm so
literally.
grateful.
Um,
Mm.
thank you so much for coming on the pod. Thank you for coming back in the closet with me.
Of
In
course,
your
I'm in my
normal
closet.
closet.
Hello.
Literally
Here's my little.
love it. Well,
It's fine.
thank you so much, Denise.
Of course.
Bye.
See you later.
Thanks everybody for coming back in the closet with me today. I know this episode was really, really heavy, and I hope that it was inspiring to you. And if you're out there and you're struggling in a similar situation, please don't hesitate to reach out to Back in the Closet podcast via TikTok. We have a link tree on the Instagram page, as well as an email contact button. And we would love to hear your stories, share your stories. If you want to come on the podcast and talk about, similar situations that you're going through, the more people that can hear the stories and relate to the stories, the more people I know we can save from these really toxic cults and toxic megachurches. Um, I myself grew up in the church, and I haven't talked about it too much on the podcast, but I also had some very traumatic situations, and it took me a really long time to deconstruct my own faith. So, hearing these stories of different people and being able to relate to other victims is really important for people that have struggled with this issue or have been in these types of situations. And Back in the Closet podcast is always a safe space for you to come share, to be heard, and for us to listen. So, thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend or week, depending on when I'm filming this. And yeah, so thanks for coming back in the closet. And I hope to see you on a next episode.
Closet, back in the closet. Closet, back in the closet. Closet.